All right, so thank you very much for the introduction, and I'm looking forward to this great session. I'd like to welcome our audience and the panelists, and I'm looking forward to a great discussion. But before we start, I want to give a brief introduction about VA research, because I don't think many people know that VA has a very robust intramural medical and prosthetic research program that's administered by the Office of Research and Development. VA research is often done in collaboration with university partners, other federal agencies, nonprofit organizations, and private industry. For more than 95 years, the VA Research and Development Program has been improving the lives of veterans and all Americans through healthcare discovery and innovation. The strategic priorities for the VA research include increasing veterans' access to high-quality clinical trials, increasing the real-world impact of VA research, putting VA data to work for veterans, actively promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion, the focus of our discussion today, and building community through VA research. One of the recent examples on how VA research has been able to help Americans is how VA was able to pivot in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Since the start of the pandemic, VA research has undertaken a wide array of activities to support and advance VA's clinical and research missions and help veterans affected by the disease. These efforts have spanned biomedical research, therapeutics and vaccine clinical trials, and data analysis that leverages VA's robust electronic health record system. VA has been part of two major national research initiatives on COVID-19 vaccines and therapeutics: Operation Warp Speed, which you might have heard on the news, and Accelerating COVID-19 Therapeutic Interventions and Vaccines, which is the ACTIVE initiative. In addition, VA has established a coronavirus research volunteer list that has more than 58,000 veterans and other US adults enrolled, with nearly a quarter from minority groups. Now that I've given you a brief introduction to VA research, I would like to go over the goals and objectives of our panel discussion today. Our panel includes esteemed colleagues representing program managers from the Office of Research and Development, leaders from the research offices in the field, and a junior investigator. We hope you will learn how partnering with the VA may help with increasing the diversity of our research workforce and also provide unique opportunities for career development and training in research. With that, I would now like to introduce all the panelists today. Dr. Jose Garcia, the Associate Director of Clinical Research at the VA Puget Sound Healthcare System, Geriatric Research Education and Clinical Center. He serves as an Associate Professor in the Department of Medicine at the University of Washington School of Medicine. Welcome, Dr. Garcia. Next, we have Dr. Hadiyah-Nicole Green, who's an Assistant Professor of Surgery at Morehouse School of Medicine and recipient of the VA Hbcu Career Development Award. Welcome, Dr. Green. Dr. Cendrine Robinson, who's the Scientific Program Manager for Behavioral Health and Reintegration in the VA's Rehabilitation Research and Development Service at the Office of Research and Development. Welcome, Dr. Robinson. Dr. Mark Roltsch. Dr. Roltsch is the Scientific Program Manager for Oncology in the VA's Clinical Science Research and Development Service at the Office of Research Development. Welcome. And Dr. Rolando Rumbaut, who's the Deputy Associate Chief of Staff of Research at the Houston VA Medical Center and the Vice Chair of Research in the Department of Medicine, Baylor College of Medicine. Welcome, Dr. Rumbaut. So I welcome all of you and thank you for agreeing to participate in this important discussion. Before we get started, can each panelist please share with our audience your role and involvement with the VA research? Let's start with Dr. Garcia.
Thank you. It's an honor to be part of this panel. I am a physician scientist and have an active VA-based research program that is funded through VA, the National Institute of Health, and the Department of Defense. I am also a mentor to undergraduate students, medical students, residents, postdoc fellows, and junior faculty members. I review grants for different organizations, including VA and NIH.
Thank you. Dr. Green?
Hi, good afternoon. Again, it is an honor to be here as well. I am an assistant professor in the Department of Surgery at Morehouse School of Medicine and a recipient of the VA Historically Black Colleges and Universities Career Development Award.
Thank you. And Dr. Robinson?
Hi, good afternoon. I'm very excited to be here today and participate in this conversation. I am a scientific program manager for behavioral health and reintegration, and just as importantly, I am the co-chair for the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Working Group in the Office of Research and Development. And so our work is largely focused on stimulating the pipeline of diverse investigators, and I'll be talking more about that shortly.
Great. Dr. Roltsch?
Hi, I'm Mark Roltsch, and I work in clinical science, and mostly cancer is my portfolio. I also have the great privilege to be co-chair with Dr. Robinson in our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Working Group. And I've launched the core recruiting site at Atlanta Morehouse Partnership, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that later.
That's great, thank you. And Dr. Rumbaut?
Good afternoon. Thank you for the privilege for being on this panel. I'm a physician scientist at the Michael E. DeBakey VA Medical Center in Houston, Texas. As Deputy Associate Chief of Staff for Research, I oversee laboratory research program throughout our facility, and I also direct a multidisciplinary research and mentoring center, the Center for Translational Research on Inflammatory Diseases, which also sponsors a training program for postdoctoral fellows based at our VA.
No, thank you. So as you can see, we have a star-studded panel here from the research service. So the Office of Research Development has established a diversity, equity, and inclusion work group, as Dr. Robinson and Dr. Ross just mentioned. As a co-chair of that work group, Dr. Robinson, can you please tell us about the mission of that work group?
Yes, absolutely. So first, I just want to mention that, today we've heard about so many different opportunities for partnership with minority serving institutions as it relates to career opportunities for students, faculty, and investigators in those institutions. And so within the Office of Research and Development, this is yet another potential pathway for career opportunities for individuals coming from minority serving institutions. And so our employee-led diversity, equity, inclusion working group formed in July 2020 to really focus on developing a pipeline of opportunities from individuals from minority serving institutions and other investigators coming from other institutions. And so that is one of the primary missions of the group. So it is to develop a diverse pipeline of VA investigators, as well as stimulate research on minority health and health disparities. We are also working to promote inclusion within our own office and to promote equity in all of our scientific activities. And so I should mention that our activities are data-driven. I'm a clinical psychologist / researcher by training, and so are my colleagues working in the office. They also have research backgrounds, and so our activities are driven by data. And so what that meant is that we had to take a look at the data as it relates to VA investigators. And so an analysis conducted by our subcommittee identified that among researchers who are funded by our office who reported their race or ethnicity, we found that less than 1% report being African American and about 1% identify as Hispanic, and even fewer numbers as Native American. And so while these numbers were incredibly sobering for us to see, and we knew prior to doing the analysis that we had a lot of work to do, but I think many of us were further driven by seeing numbers that, we heard Dr. Matthews talk today about the work that needs to be done in terms of workforce and other aspects of VA, but to see numbers of 1% is really motivating for us to come up with a plan and to do something about it. And so we know that partnerships with minority serving institutions is critical for us to address the healthcare and research needs of the diverse veteran population that we serve. In a similar vein, we took a look at research topics as it relates to minority health and health disparities among veterans, and identified that while there is work being done, we are supporting research on this topic. There is much more to be done. And so that is a part of our mission, and we have efforts underway to address gaps by stimulating research on minority health and health disparities through by making it clear to investigators that these are topics that we're interested in, and providing incentives and noting this area as a priority. It's also in our mission to ensure equity in all scientific processes, including the peer review process. And so, as many of you know, in terms of getting research funded, you can write something up, be really proud of it, but it has to get through peer review. And we know from other research infrastructures like the National Institutes of Health that there are barriers for some racial and ethnic groups as it relates to the success of their proposals. And so we are taking a look at our peer review process by establishing a way of collecting data of our peer reviewers and looking at opportunities to provide training for investigators who are earlier in their career to participate in the peer review process. And so I'll stop there. My colleague, Dr. Roltsch, will share more.
Well, thank you very much. I think it looks like there's a lot of activities going on in ORD and different facets of trying to address this issue of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So, Dr. Ross, as a co-chair of the work group, can you tell us how we are supporting, say, young researchers from underrepresented communities?
Sure. We've as Cendrine had mentioned, we're an employee-led diversity and equity inclusion working group. And Cendrine and I actually got started talking about this in early 2019 when we were looking at how do we get more people into our pipeline. I went to an HBCU and we didn't find really good opportunities of how we can bring people up from minority serving institutions into VA research. And our working group, one of the things that we established was a grant writing workshop we did a couple months ago for individuals who'd applied for a career development award, didn't get in. They were from a background that we don't have many people from a disadvantaged background. And we did a workshop with them to help them develop a stronger grant application to come in. Another thing we're really excited about is we launched a diversity supplement award. And this is a entry-level candidate who links up with a VA supported merit awardee in any of the different services. And they do 1 to 2 years at probably about the postdoc level. And it's completely funded for their salary and some research materials and get them ready to apply for a career development award. So it's a great way to launch that. We just got those applications in and we'll be reviewing them this month and seeing which ones we fund. About in March 2020, I working with Morehouse and Atlanta VA, we launched what we call a core recruiting site, a partnership there between those two institutions, the VA and Morehouse, to bring in a pipeline of researchers that at Morehouse at the medical school there or others that can start to get involved with VA research. And we're looking for other universities to partnership in a similar way with that program. And then the last thing that we're really working on is how do we get undergraduates involved at the VA or even pre-docs? And we've run into some difficulties, but I believe Cendrine and I are really at the point where next summer we will probably be able to have some ways to fund some of those experience. We believe that that could be a great pipeline for people to get VA experience, learn about the VA, learn about what's going on in research. Maybe they go on to research careers, maybe they go to be an MD or a clinician, and maybe they just want to work in one of the research projects that are going on. But we think it's a great way. And she'll tell you a little bit more about that program. She's been the champion of it. And I've just been in the background supporting her as we build that program.
Oh, no, thank you. Thank you very much for that information. I think this is really interesting and important for people to understand, because they always think of a medical center, they think of medical students and residents and fellows, but the involvement of VA and undergraduate research it's extremely important. And I would love to hear a little bit more about it from Dr. Robinson, if you want to continue on that, Dr. Robinson.
Yes, absolutely. So as Mark mentioned, much of the work that we support now is really starting for individuals that already have their PhD. Everything within that ORD directly funds is kind of, PhD and up. And so we recognize that it's so critical when we talk about diversifying the pipeline. We can't just work with people that already have their PhDs. That's not having a real impact. And so we kind of see a really great opportunity to kind of reach individuals at the undergraduate level. And so all of that is really in its beginning stages in terms of ORD trying to develop its own program. I will say that there's locally at specific VAs, work is already underway, and there's programs that are being launched as early as this summer So the Palo Alto VA, for example, has a program that is targeting individuals from underrepresented backgrounds in science, and that is recruiting undergraduate. They are recruiting undergraduate students kind of as we speak. And there's a couple other VAs that are also launching programs this summer. And so I think we'll start to see more of that kind of at the level of individual VA. So I would say at this point, if there are individuals, in this meeting today that have interest, we are looking for opportunities to collaborate in order to launch the programs within ORD. And I'd also be happy to connect you with the programs that already exist.
Well, that's very helpful information. Now that we've heard about so many activities and programs that ORD is pushing out, I just want to kind of pivot to the field a little bit. And Dr. Garcia, VA is so fortunate to having you serve our veterans. Can you tell us some examples of how your VA Medical Center is supporting minority researchers and also for the process of developing a research career at the VA?
Absolutely. Yeah, the VA offers opportunities for career development in research at all levels. Undergraduate students, for instance, college level students that are considering a career in biomedical sciences can apply at my VA in Seattle, the Puget Sound VA, for a without compensation position and work as volunteers in the lab. So in some instances, this may allow them to claim credit at affiliated institutions. In my case, it's the University of Washington, that can be used towards a degree. So I'm glad to see that ORD is actually working on making this an official process, and I'm looking forward to working with them on this. Also, graduate students and postdoctoral fellows can work at the VA as part of agreements with affiliated institutions or through grants managed by the VA or VA nonprofit organizations such as NIH or the Department of Defense grants. For some eligible individuals, career development awards may be available and are often the best way to transition into an independent research career. And oftentimes, this is the most attractive opportunity at this stage in their careers, more so than NIH-sponsored K awards, for instance. So the VA is particularly interested in developing the career of underrepresented minorities, and specific grants are available. For instance, the Diversity Supplement funding opportunity that was recently established, and it was discussed by Dr. Roltsch, that is being promoted to the site. So I had already heard about this opportunity. So this will fund this early career scientists and provide their salary and also some money for research and travel, so they can really accelerate their career, with the expectations that then they will apply for their own career development awards. So the VA is actively invested in the development of the careers of underrepresented minorities.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think also in general, the VA has been committed to career development awards. As a career development awardee myself, helped my career in the VA, I really appreciate it. And now moving to a recent career development awardee, as we have understood that research awards are vital for career development. Dr. Green, as a recipient of the VA Hbcu Career Development Award, can you share about your experience applying for the award and what you were able to accomplish since receiving it?
Yes, absolutely. So first, I would like to thank you all for this opportunity to represent the VA Historically Black Colleges and Universities Career Development Award recipients. I am proud to see the VA's commitment to diversity and inclusion, and I applaud and encourage the systemic and measurable actions to end internal racism by improving access to information about funding opportunities and diversifying the reviewers involved in the peer review process. My experience applying for the Hbcu Career Development Award began in 2014 with Dr. Tashaka Cunningham. He was the program officer at the time who persevered and pioneered this specific initiative to address the disparity in funding, because less than 1% of VA-funded research scientists are African American. As a side note, I'm very happy that Dr. Mark Roltsch and Dr. Cendrine Robinson are now continuing this effort to ensure diversity among VA-funded researchers with the DE&I working group. So back to my experience. Dr. Cunningham reached out to leaders at HBCUs, and one of my mentors, Dr. Shri Singh at Alabama State University, highly recommended me. My first application was peer-reviewed by a diverse panel of investigators. And even though it was not funded, the feedback was genuine and sound. When I modified my proposal based on the reviewers' comments, I was funded on my second submission because of the merits of my proposal, not the color of my skin. This should always be the case, regardless of the VA funding mechanism, and any peer review panel should have diverse representation to ensure racial bias does not interfere with the merit-based peer review process. As one of the first African-American women to earn a PhD in physics, I developed local and targeted cancer therapies using laser-activated nanoparticles. I reimagined ablative therapies by designing a patent-pending nanoparticle that is more uniform in shape and size than those that are commercially available. This innovation led to a single 10-minute treatment, intratumoral treatment, that completely eliminates solid tumors in 15 days with clear tumor margins and without chemotherapy, radiation, surgery, or any observable side effects. My Career Development Award has afforded me the opportunity to publish several manuscripts as senior author about my technology. And for me, and this is the part that I am the most excited about, my award has helped me establish relationships and collaborations with surgeons within the VA who want to conduct clinical trials with the cancer treatment I developed to help veterans with difficult to treat cancer. And 7 VA surgeons have provided letters of support for my clinical science R&D merit award proposals. In addition to their academic accomplishments, because not only in the VA, but even in the National Cancer Institute and other government funding agencies, the funding of African-American scientists has not been common. The community learned about my Career Development Award, and it launched me into a national spotlight. And I've received a lot of national recognition, including being named by USA Today as one of the most inspiring women of the last 100 years, along with Eleanor Roosevelt, Hillary Clinton, Michelle Obama, Oprah Winfrey, and the founder of the Girl Scouts. And one of the things that I think, even though I've had a lot of accolades, that is most humbling was 2 years ago, because of the VA Career Development Award, the Girl Scouts named me as one of the most outstanding role models. So to know that there are other young women and women of color and women of all races who look at me as a national role model because of the funding that came from the VA, I'm truly humbled, I'm grateful, and I take this opportunity to be a role model and an example as something that I hope, as one of the first African-American females to have this position, that this opens the door for others to come behind me and really, truly, and sincerely increases the diversity of VA-funded researchers. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much, Dr. Bean. I'm sure ORD and the VA is proud to support an inspiring researcher like you, and you certainly, pave the path to many more to follow your footsteps. And so, thank you for your comments. In trying to expand research opportunities for minority faculty and students, I was wondering, Dr. Rumbaut, if you could say, how would the VA, in cooperation with the affiliated universities and educational institutions, fill the workforce pipeline by recruiting scientists from underrepresented populations? And I was wondering if you have thoughts about that.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Choudhary. I'll provide examples of 3 approaches that we've used here in Houston, VA, which include coordination with our primary academic affiliate. Number 2, cooperation with minority serving institutions in our city. And number 3, through federal programs aimed specifically at promoting diversity. With regards to coordination with our primary academic affiliate, in the case of our VA, our primary affiliate is Baylor College of Medicine. And in preparing for this summit, I learned that Baylor has outreach programs aimed at underrepresented populations starting as early as middle school. For example, a program with Ryan Middle School that has nearly 90% students from underrepresented populations, and one with a Michael E. DeBakey High School for Health Professions with nearly 50% underrepresented students, offering opportunities in research. While beginning at an early career stage would be wonderful, I think there are other programs through our affiliate that are more suitable for VA researchers. One is a summer research program for undergraduate college students, which currently has 30% of students from underrepresented groups. And some of our VA researchers have used that as a means to recruit underrepresented students to their VA labs. There's two other programs through our primary affiliate that are solely for underrepresented students. One is at the post-baccalaureate level, and another is for graduate students. So second, with regards to cooperation with minority serving institutions in our area, so in addition to our primary affiliation with Baylor, our VA has affiliation agreements for a number of programs at a variety of institutions, several of which are minority serving. In addition, a number of our VA researchers, including myself, perform collaborative research with investigators at those institutions. I'll give you one example is there is a very large, highly ambitious research center application that several researchers from RVA are participating in. It's a multi-institution application to the National Institutes of Health that includes Texas Southern University. You heard from Dr. Capers. That is one of the historically Black colleges and universities. And it also includes the University of Houston, which is a Hispanic serving institution in the area, as well as our primary academic affiliate. In addition, we have also been successful at recruiting underrepresented students from, for example, institutions that are emerging Hispanic institutions. And we've had several summer undergraduate college students that in our center that have we've recruited that way. And lastly, I want to talk about another strategy we have used is through federally supported programs aimed specifically at promoting diversity. You heard about the VA ORD initiative, but in addition, our VA researchers have been able to recruit trainees from underrepresented backgrounds, for example, through supplements from the National Institutes of Health that are provided to either individual investigator awards, for example, the R01 award mechanism, or to institutional training programs, for example, the T32 award mechanism. In RVA, we have one of those T32 awards, which has allowed us to recruit postdoctoral trainees in general and several underrepresented minority trainees. And then there's other federal programs that are standalone, aimed specifically at promoting diversity, such as the NIH-sponsored Initiative to Maximize Student Diversity, or IMSD. So again, in our case, while these are managed by our academic affiliate, a number of our VA researchers have sought these supplements to recruit individuals to our VA. So again, in our case, coordination with our primary academic affiliate, cooperation with minority serving institutions in our area, and through federal programs aimed specifically at promoting diversity has been successful. Thank you.
Thank you very much, man. I think that information is really, really important that people don't realize that in addition to the intramural research program, we have opportunities to have some training programs and other that are extramural funded by the NIH that are used by VA researchers and used for recruitment purposes in the VA as well. So thank you for that information. I was wondering, if, Dr. Garcia, if you can give our audience 1 or 2 words of advice on how they can partner with the VA. Is there more information they can pass on to their colleagues, postdocs, and students who may be interested in VA research programs?
Yes, I would recommend people to be proactive and reach out to their local R&D offices or target R&D offices. So you may be located in Houston, but may want to move on to Dallas. So you can look at and reach out to that R&D office or to individual investigators that are working at that VA that are in your field of interest, maybe a leader in the field, and inquire about potential opportunities. Navigating the system and finding the best match for each person may take some time. And so I would say at least 6 months or so. So establishing these connections early is recommended.
Great. Anything else that you would like to add, Dr. Rumbaut?
So I agree with Dr. Garcia, and if I were to just add, in addition to contacting the local research office, other possible strategies to identify VA investigators may include searching recent published articles from the particular VA, as well as searching public databases of active funded research studies, for example, the NIH reporter site, or even active clinical trials being done at the VA through clinicaltrials.gov.
Yeah, that's really good information. And I think some of us remember that when VA was not part of the reporter, but now all the VA grants are on reporters, so they're easily searchable, which has been great. And also the list of all the associate chiefs of staff and administrative officers for research is available at the ORD website. And I'm sure in some of the notes that come with the programming, we can share that with people, so you can look up your local research office. So this was a really great discussion, and I really thank everybody for their insights and the information that we provided to the group. I think we have time for a question here. So let's turn to some audience question. The question is, what is required for a career development award, and what are the benefits? I was wondering, Dr. Roltsch, if you wouldn't mind answering that.
Sure. And I just want to say that ORD website is a great place to look to see. We highlight researchers that are on the cutting edge. Students and others could see what's happening. And if there's an area they're interested in, they could reach out to them. And hats off to Dr. Green. She just happens to be in my portfolio. We like having rock stars in our portfolios, and working with her to get her merit award funded here in the next round for her to keep her research going.
Thank you.
One of the things, to be able to get a career development award, you really have to have a desire to want to work in the VA. You know, the VA is a very unique place, as some of the videos showed. Working with men and women who served in our country, and they're just unique patients that you see. And being able to do research in that field and help these individuals who gave so much of their lives to us has to be your passion. You have to want to do that to be in a career development pathway. Then you have to be a U.S. citizen also. You have to find a VA mentor, and that can be done through contacting that VA and an ACOS, reaching out to one of us program officers or program managers here at ORD. Cendrine or I can work around and pass words around to other people. If you have a student who's really interested in that and how we can get you open that door up. A mentor is really important. And that's at the VA career development level or any other federal agency. Having a great mentor who's passionate and is going to support you, push you, and get you to where you need to be for your career is really important in that. And the third part is career development, that you have to make sure that you submit what we call a letter of intent. So you have to be accepted to be able to apply for a career development award. And a letter of intent is basically you're given an outline of what your application is going to look like. and it goes to each one of the different services. And we review that and we say, hey, yes, you're qualified, come on in with an application. And those are the 4 big parts. And one last thing, the RFA that Dr. Green got funded on was specifically for HBCUs linking to a VA. We've now expanded that, and it should be coming out in our next round of RFAs to include all minority serving institutions. And that wasn't there before. So we look forward to getting some applications from down there in Texas and other areas around the country for minority serving institutions into that RFA. So we're really excited about that also.
Well, that was great. And thank you, Dr. Ross. And I know there's lots of questions on the chat, and the staff will be putting together answers to those questions, and they'll be forthcoming. So I want to thank everybody for their participation today. I think this was a great discussion, and I hope we gave some useful information to the audience on how to approach, to participate in VA research as a career development awardee, as a trainee, or as a researcher. And thank you for this opportunity, Dr. Greenberg, for me to moderate this panel. Back to you.